everyone. I hope you can hear me. If you can hear us, can you please comment in the question and answer session, because it should come up on the side of the screen and we'll just know that everyone can access the Google Doc. I'm Stella Creasy. I am the Member of Parliament for Walthamstow, North East London. I'm also standing to be Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Tonight we are going to attempt to run a forum that we've been running all around the country with hundreds of people online for the first time ever. So I hope you'll bear with us. We've had to think about how best to organise the event, given that we're not all in one room, but this means that we've got 150 people hopefully taking part this evening, which is really exciting. We'll just know that everyone can access the Google Doc. And I even seem to be talking to myself. So there's a little bit of a time delay, which is going to make it even more interesting for us, because we're using 2 different forums tonight to be able to make sure that as many people as possible don't just hear what we're saying, but actually get an opportunity to comment and take part in what we're doing. First and foremost, we're on Google Hangout this evening, and as you'll see, there are some moderators helping me run this session. So David is waving there, Hannah is waving, and John is looking at his other computer. John, do you want to wave as well?
Hello.
Go on, there we go, wonderful. We're also using my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/Stella Creasy. And on there you will find some of the exercises for this evening as well. In order to take part in this evening, there are a number of different ways. First and foremost, you can just watch on YouTube. You can just listen in on the Google Hangout. If you just want to hear what we're talking about, that's absolutely fine. If you want to take part, you need to either go to my Facebook page to take part in the discussions that will be on there, and ideally, you emailed us earlier and you've been sent a document for one of the groups that you can be in tonight, and there are 3 different groups around local change, national change, and change within the Labour Party, and I'll explain a bit more about them later. But the first thing I'd like to do, rather than going straight into the workshop, is just a bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, if you are online tonight, the hashtag for this evening, there are 2 hashtags we're using, and they're on the wall behind me. Hashtag Stella for Deputy, the number 4, because we're down with the kids. And hashtag Campaign Bootcamp. Please feel free to use either of them so people can see what you're saying as well. And also there's a discussion on the Facebook site. Secondly, please be kind to the moderators. They're going to read out the comments that people are writing. They're going to help people with the interactive documents. I have a 0 tolerance policy on harassment, so anybody who writes anything that isn't acceptable, we're going to kick you out because it's not okay. This is a first time we've done this online, and I know that opens us up to a number of people who maybe don't want to take part in a constructive discussion, but that's not fair on the people who do. The first section we want to talk about tonight is a really simple one, which is why do people join the Labour Party? Because that goes back to the heart of why we've been running these sessions. See, we started the Campaign Fightback Club because of one of my predecessors as the Walthamstow MP, Clem Attlee. Clem Attlee said that the Labour Party is what its members make of it. But if we're honest, we don't really make that much of membership, of the ideas, of the expertise, of the energy that our members and our activists have. Now we've got nearly 600,000 people being part of the Labour Party. That's a huge opportunity to do much more. But in order to do that, I don't think it starts with a particular type of meeting or a particular type of person. We think it starts with 3 very simple questions. You can now find those 3 questions on my Facebook page to be able to take part in this first part of the discussion, and we can see already a number of people already have. The 3 questions are, 1, why did you join? If you joined us tonight because you're actually a supporter rather than a full member of the Labour Party, why did you sign up as a supporter? Secondly, what would make you stay, or what makes you stay, or even what would make you leave? Why are you continuing to be part of what we do? Really, really important question. And thirdly, who do you admire and why? And that can be anybody across any walk of life. It doesn't have to be a political person. It's just an interesting thing about who inspires you, who motivates you. So I know that some people have been commenting, and this is where I'm going to turn first and foremost to our lovely moderating assistants. I'm going to start with you, Hannah. Hannah, do you want to wave again so everyone knows who you are?
Hello.
Hello, brilliant. Hannah, you've been following what people have been writing about why they joined the Labour Party. So I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about what people have been writing on the Facebook site so far.
Yeah, we've had some really interesting comments actually. Jeremy Corbyn, that's a popular answer. And also, this is a really good one. John Mason said, I wanted to help build a fairer society, not so reliant on tradition. We're all about breaking tradition here. And then there was another really good comment from Jan Holden, who said, after the devastation I felt following the exit poll, I wanted to be involved in the future of the party. I think we all felt pretty devastated. So,
Brilliant.
some good comments.
That's really interesting. David, you've been looking at what people have been saying about what might make them stay or even what might make them leave, kind of why having had that first spark of getting involved, you might decide actually you don't want to be involved anymore, or what would get you more involved. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what people have been writing.
Well, certainly, thankfully, no one has said that they wanted to leave. But David Page says that he wants, what would make him stay in the Labour Party is feeling that even you can make the slightest difference within the party. Others have commented on that they wish to, they would want to stay in the Labour Party because the Labour Party has always stood up for vulnerable people. Gideon has also argues that he wants to stay in the Labour Party because the Labour Party should govern the entire country. So I would imagine that's referring to not just focusing on one particular area, looking at places like Scotland where Labour needs to do a lot of work. But yeah, that's a general trend. Listening to members, getting involved, governing the whole country.
What might make them, who they admire. Oh, John, have we lost you?
Not sure what happened there.
John, John, we can't quite hear you. I wonder if we could just get you to borrow David's microphone for a moment because I know you're with him.
Yeah. Do you want to? If you move, yeah. So we have had a comment from Rushi, who said that she actually admires Stella Creasy. I don't know who that is.
Come again.
But as a publicly active MP, so Rushi, your check's in the post. And an early comment as well from Abdullah Zaman, who admires Abdul Sattar Eddy for the work he's done on founding a large non-profit social welfare organisation. Did you hear that?
Yeah, we could hear that. That's pretty interesting. Hannah, have you had any more comments in on the why did you join page?
We've had a couple of new comments. So Alex said that he didn't know how to sign up to vote in a Labour election, which is a shame. Unfortunately, sign-ups have stopped now, but you can still join as a member. In fact, I'll post the link below. And we had a really good comment, which was from Daniel, which said, I joined because I got so fed up with moaning at the TV. So there's a real appetite, I think, for people to actually get involved and do things rather than just moaning. So that's fantastic. We've also got a lot of people saying that they join because they care about Labour and they want a more equal society. So Steve says that he was a lifelong Labour voter and he's always been a lefty, which is great.
Just unmute you.
Thank you.
So hopefully that should stop the.
Okay.
David. Oh no, I've managed to mute. David, I'm hoping that that's unmuted you, maybe?
Hello.
Oh, there we go. Yes, brilliant. David, tell us a little bit more about what's coming in on the what would make you stay or what might make you leave.
Well, people have been talking, they're very inspired by Jeremy Corbyn. They've been commenting on that. Also, more public consultation, Labour Party listening to what they have to say. And also breaking down the idea that business people are the most productive and important people and contributors to society. So looking at other ways in which people can contribute to public life.
Brilliant. Okay, and can we get John to borrow your microphone and do one more round of what people are saying about?
Yeah, shout again.
Fire.
I'm actually having a look on Twitter as well, because some people are sharing on there.
Oh, so, great.
Councillor Alan Clark has shared Nelson Mandela, because he never gave up. He kept fighting for what he believed in. And Charlie agrees with that. So, and then a couple of people saying that they do, they admire Jeremy Corbyn for the campaign that he's run. So there's a couple of people suggesting that. I'm just having a look back on the Facebook page, but we haven't had any more comments. So if people want to share on there, they can head over now.
Great. I'm just looking as well about the best way, because I know, so people have to forgive me, it's the first time I've really used Google Hangout, and I know there's an option for people to be able to submit questions, but I've not seen any yet. So if anybody wants to be the first person to submit a question, I will definitely answer it, but I don't know how to do that. So I hope I haven't, if I've not clicked the right button, please do tweet or put up on the Facebook page, and the moderators will help me find out what I might not have done to make that work. But the reason why we start the Fight Back clubs with that question, with why do you join and what would make you stay and who do you admire, is in doing this, and we've now done Fight Back clubs with nearly 700 people around the country. Nobody ever says I join for the meetings. Nobody ever says I join for a leaflet round. A lot of people, like the people that Hannah was talking about, they talk about a sense of social injustice, of wanting to change the world, of wanting to make sure that there is an alternative to, especially to the current government, so the sense that actually there are bigger things that we should be fighting for. And what David and the comments that often come back about why people stay tap into again is not a particular process, but a sense that actually there is a fight to be had and something really worthwhile. And certainly I would say that I joined the Labour Party not just to be angry about the world around me, but actually to find answers to the things that we could do to change it. Because actually just being angry meant that you were frustrated, whereas actually having things to fight for and things that you were trying to achieve could make a real difference. So one of the things that I'm really determined about is that the Labour Party has to move from having an analysis that the world is unfair, vote Labour, to actually the world is unfair and here is the thing that we're fighting for to change that, to make it better. That's why the next exercise I'd like you to do, and I'm going to ask John now if he can make the second lot of notes available on the Facebook page. So please move from commenting on the first 3 questions about why did you join and what makes you stay and who do you admire, and I'm just going to tweet that and say that we need to move on to the next lot of questions. So forgive me because I'm tweeting from a separate computer just to make sure that we don't lose the camera feed. So the second lot of questions in the campaign bootcamp are about the things that you would like to see Labour fighting for. The things that you would like to see Labour fight for.
So I can say that they're up now, so we've got the 3 categories are up on the Facebook page now.
Brilliant. So what I'd like you all to do now, and to encourage people to do on Twitter and on Facebook, is to write down in comments on those notes the things that you would like to see Labour fighting for, the actions, not just an analysis. Like I say, the first place our campaigning goes wrong is that we stop with the analysis. We have to be really clear what it is we're fighting for, what would make a difference. So for example, if you were concerned about climate change, which is a very, very important issue, that's an analysis. We should do something about climate change. Reducing emissions or increasing our use of renewable energy is an action that we could take that would help us tackle climate change. And what I want is everybody who's watching, everybody who's commenting on the Facebook site, their ideas about the actions that Labour could be fighting for over the next couple of years and where they think the power lies to be able to change that. And in particular, whether that's something that needs to happen at a local level, something that needs to happen at a national level, or something about the Labour movement itself. Now, you can write the same idea in the 3 different categories if you want to, if you're not sure whether you think it's something to do with local or national or Labour. What it really needs to be is an action, a thing that we could be fighting for. And I'm going to give people who are watching and tweeting and Facebooking an opportunity now to write in those 3 categories. Are they up now, John?
Yeah, those are up on the Facebook page.
Brilliant.
They're published and ready for people to comment underneath.
Yeah. If you go to my Facebook page now, you can comment on what you think, and this is open to everyone taking part in this process and everyone commenting to comment what they would like to see the Labour Party fighting for. But please make sure you put it in the different category that you think it goes into. And David is going to monitor and help with the people writing on the local stuff. So he's going to tell me in a minute when people start writing on local issues. Hannah is going to keep an eye on the Labour discussion, and John is going to look at the national discussion. So what the titles refer to is where do you think the power lies to be able to change that issue, to make that action happen. And helpfully, somebody has just given me my first question on Google Hangouts, so I'm going to answer that to give you a bit of time to be able to put some ideas up on the Facebook page. Remember, this is for everyone to take part in. And if you use the tag, somebody's tweet is the duck. That's not quite sure whether that's an action, but it could be. I'm not sure if there's an issue. The point about local things. So, for example, one of the sessions we ran, people said that actually they wanted to see 30 minutes free parking in town centres as a way of helping regenerate town centres. Other people have talked about fighting for affordable housing at both a local and a national level. Some people have said that we need to fight for a social care tax. Some people have talked about the importance of mental health for young people. Some people have said actually what Labour needs to do over the next couple of years is have a much more diverse group of people as candidates. Some people have raised issues around the way in which the Labour Party organises itself and said that's what we need to do. That's the action we need to take to make a difference. And it's those kind of ideas, folks, I'm looking for in those 3 different categories. In the meantime, I'm going to attempt to answer this question from Mark Davies. Mark Davies says, someone mentioned about business people and their contribution to society. Do you think the plumbers, hairdressers, care workers, public servants, etc., trained in further education are major contributors to society? I like an easy question. Yes, I think is my answer to that. I'm just going to press yes and see what happens. Oh, apparently I've answered yes. So Mark, I hope you're listening and I hope that works. Sorry, I've never done this before, so I thought it was going to give me a little box to be able to comment. But yes, of course. The point is that everybody has a contribution to make. I come from the co-op part of the Labour Party as well as the Labour Party itself, and in the co-op movement was founded on the idea that all of us were equal contributors and equal beneficiaries, that we could achieve more together than we do alone. But in order to do that, we had to work in ways in which everybody could make a contribution. It wasn't that one sector, public or private, was better. It was that in each of those sectors we could do things to change the world. So when you talk about people in any one job, of course, everybody has a contribution to make and everybody makes a contribution. One of the things that frustrates me is seeing when people aren't able to do that. I see lots of young people in my local community in Walthamstow who are really clever, talented young people who don't always get that opportunity to be what they could be, and therefore we all miss out on the contribution they can make as a result. So that's why I said yes, Mark. Anyway, oh, that's gone. But that at least means that the question function is working. So if you want to ask me a question, please use the question and answer session on Google Hangouts as well, because it comes up on my screen. I'm going to go to the moderators now and see whether people have been writing on the Facebook pages. And I'm going to go to you first, Hannah. What's been written on the Labour page?
So we've got 2 really good suggestions, but we need more, so keep commenting. So the first one is from Stephen, who says he wants mandatory reselection of MPs to weed out the professional politician. So that would be kind of MPs constantly needing to be kind of reselected and reaffirmed, which is an interesting idea. And then the next really good suggestion is from Neil Roberts, who says that we should introduce a quality standard mark for CLPs and regions, which measure how much we engage and involve and innovate, which I think is an amazing idea. Would be really interesting to sort of see how that would work practically, and it's good to have sort of an incentive to involve more people and innovate. There's some really good suggestions, and if everybody could keep suggesting and keep liking the ones that you want to get voted for, that would be great.
Brilliant. Okay, David, what's being said on the local page?
Well, Rushie's made a very good point. She's a huge fan for Black, Asian and minority ethnic shortlists, which he thinks should be done by CLPs. And CLP should opt into this, but the leadership shouldn't force the shortlists.
Okay.
So I suppose that's getting better representation in the House of Commons. And Stephen has also said that that locally there should be active resolve of local issues to get people involved. So I suppose that must mean local campaigns, community campaigns and so on, which I'm sure you'd be able to comment on.
Definitely. So that raises a really good point. So Rishi's posted that on the local site. So one of the things you might want to reply to her is ask her whether she thinks that. So the three categories are national, local, Labour, and it's where you think the power lies and the purpose lies to be able to change that thing. So I guess the question for Rishi is, if that's something, it's quite a specific proposal, does she think that's something about the Labour Party, or is that something more generally about a local level? Is she saying that she'd like to see black and ethnic minority shortlists on across all local government, for example, if it's a local issue that she's posting? I just want to make sure that, because you can post up the same idea in more than one category. Normally when we do this offline, what we have is everyone has a bunch of post-it notes, and they go around and they stick their ideas into the different categories, and they do it depending on where they think the power lies to change it. But it means that you make sure that every category has where they think the issue lies, and I just want to make sure that it's clear for people about the different issues. I've just had another question come in before we get onto the national one, which is usually one that gets quite a lot of ideas, so give John a bit of time to go through it. The national one, the question we've had is not a question, but I would like to see Labour fighting on mental health provision, and as an action to see our party arrange regular simple coffee/pub chats with our members and their friends to address loneliness. Does this happen much across the UK? Okay, that's a really interesting idea. Hannah, why don't you post that up in the Labour category for people if they want to be able to vote on that? Well, Rodney, it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because actually we ran a project in Walthamstow called 7 Days for Stowe a couple of years ago, and what I did was I asked everybody in the local community to give us 7 days of their time over the course of the year to help tackle the impact of austerity on our local community. And we ran a process, a bit like the Campaign Fightback clubs, for people to design themselves what they think would help people in the local community. And we ended up with 8 projects, and they were amazing projects. 300 people took part, and they ran from our local night shelter to our local food bank, helping that become, it's now a very big food bank, to helping people learn how to cook food healthily on a low budget, particularly using Walthamstow's famous market, longest market in Europe. I'll brook no answers that it's not. But one of the ideas they came up with was a befriending scheme, because they recognised that for a lot of people in our local community, especially with all the cuts to some of the social and voluntary sector that were taking place because of austerity, because of what the government was doing and the council choices that were being made, a lot of people were feeling very isolated. So they were running befriending activities, and it was really, really powerful what they were doing. And it's gone on. The people who are involved in that are now set up a local residents association, and they do a number of different activities in their area. So I definitely think, Rodney, that you're onto something, because actually loneliness is a factor for people who are stuck. I mean, we've been talking to people who've had their funding cut for their independent living fund, and they're really isolated now because they find it much harder to get out, and as a result of some of the changes that are being made, that's going to increase. So it's a really, really powerful point. There's actually a Labour campaign for mental health, Rodney, and if you haven't seen them, do check them out. They're a great group. I've been working over the course of the last couple of months with a couple of people who've been very interested in mental health campaigning. Fantastic young woman in Nottingham called Jasmine, who's been looking at how she can campaign for mental health rights at work, and she came up in one of the hustings in the party, and I've been helping her ever since I met. So there's a lot of interest within it in the Labour Party. What we don't always have is the opportunity for people to be able to do that, and what I would love is for people to be able to use things like the Campaign Fightback Club format to be able to plan a campaign like that. So I'll stop there. I hope I've answered it. Moderators look forward. So John, I hope that's given you some time to look through what some of the people have been writing about national ideas.
Yeah, definitely. So we have had quite a few suggestions come through already. So I'll read a couple of those. So Sam Barkov has suggested a national campaign to increase workplace democracy. So following cooperative and John Lewis style models where people who work have more of a say over the way the companies are run. We've got a couple that have already had a few votes as well. So the one in the lead at the moment is electoral reform. So a national campaign pushing for proportional voting, so that everyone's vote counts. That's already got a few votes already. And a campaign around the NHS. This comes from Joy Carville, saying that it might not be doing everything that it needs to at the moment, but Labour should campaign to keep it as a national service, and especially focus again on mental health and elderly care. There are other suggestions around fairer systems of representation, which I suppose falls into the electoral reform. Stephen Greenhouse has made a suggestion about policy within the party, coming from the party itself and being delivered by MPs. So he might want to repost that in Hannah's conversation.
Hannah, do you want to take that and put that in the Labour one?
Yep, I'll do that.
So yes, and then another popular one is removing privatisation from the NHS. So we might need to flesh that out a bit more about what that would look like, but that's coming from Alison Gardner. So if that wins the vote, then it'd be something that we can break down in the next session.
That's great, and so thank you, John. So you mentioned about voting there. So what's going to happen in the next session is that the idea that comes top of the list, i.e. gets the most likes in all three of those categories, is what we're going to take on to the next session. I'm going to say a little bit more about that when we get to the voting bit, but if there's something that you read right now and you think, yeah, that's it, don't forget to like it on the Facebook pages so that that has an opportunity to go further up the list. I'm going to come back to Hannah and David now to see whether we've had some more comments on the Facebook and the local and the Labour sections. David, when we start with you, you're nodding away. Tell us a bit more what people are saying about local.
Well, Jim wants to encourage people to meet in local parishes, which I suppose answers Philip Larkin's question of what happens to churches when they fall out of use. Tracy argues...
Always got to have a bit of Larkin. Always got to have a bit of Larkin in a workshop.
Tracy argues that there should be clear messages for the doorstep when canvassing and so on. And Alison states that it should be local programs involved in taking care of people in the community. Jim made a very good point where he said there should always be a presence of Labour activists, so that when you do go door knocking, people on the doorstep, constituents, don't say, "Oh, you're only here when you want a vote," which I think is a good point. And Joy says that we should involve people in community activities, which I think is a very good point.
Right. Hannah, what's been coming up on your board?
Lots of interesting suggestions here. So there's lots of suggestions about, so Sam says that the MP should not be the gatekeepers of the leadership election ballot in the way they currently are. So maybe looking at how we elect our leader, so that's an interesting reform. And then Alison Gardner says training and education programs need to improve for new members. It can be very confusing when you first join. So I think a lot of us feel that, so that's a really good suggestion. Let's have another look. Also, Rushy also says that rather than having meetings with members that can be hard for young people to contribute to, we should definitely have more sessions like the boot camp. So that's big praise for the boot camp. We need more boot camps.
Rushy, I'm loving your work. I mean, the downside about doing these online is that normally we have lots of Haribo at our boot camp, so I can't even offer you a fizzy cherry to say thank you for being so encouraged by all of this. But maybe give you a virtual fizzy cherry. I don't even know what that would look like. Maybe like, so yeah. No, I can't even do that. I know. We move on. John, tell us a bit more about what's coming in on the national boards.
Right, I'm just having a look because there have been a few more votes come in. Campaign for the Protection of Workers' Rights. Obviously, people are concerned about reforms to trade union law, so that's got a bit of support. That's coming from Mel Stainford. So again, Joseph Saunders is saying to pick more parliamentary candidates from working class backgrounds. Again, I think that might come under Hannah's area of expertise on the local campaign. Tracy Biggs came in with a graduate tax to replace student loans, because obviously a lot of people getting into a lot of debt on that front. And then she also followed that with repealing the Health and Social Care Act, which is again tied to the privatisation in the NHS. So what I might try and do is lump some of those together and add all the votes up on those where they're kind of coming together on the same sort of topics. And lastly, Ben Lyons came on to suggest more effort to release the talent of young people, particularly funding for early years support, and maybe looking at some of the benefits that pensioners receive to see if there's a means testing angle that can be looked at there in order to provide that support for the younger generation coming through.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to give people until, what should we say, 8:35, so another 2 minutes to comment on the Facebook pages about their ideas, and I'm going to tweet that out and say that you've got 2 minutes to give their ideas, and then we're going to do the voting. So also, if you want to ask me some questions whilst we're voting, don't forget to use the question and answer session. So I'm going to say there are 2 minutes left to put your ideas up on the Facebook pages for Labour's Fight Back campaign. And I'm going to use the Campaign Bootcamp tag so that you can do that, hopefully. So, any more coming through, Hannah?
Let me have a quick look.
Can we start the voting?
There was some really good comments from Kim saying that I only hear from my local branch after they've held a meeting, which is very frustrating. So some ideas about how to...
What is the action that helps resolve that?
I'm not too sure. We'll have to have a think about that. Use of web services.
Encourage her to come up with ideas. So what we're really focused on with these is what are the actions that we could be taking that would make a difference? Because if we just stop with the analysis, which is sometimes one of the problems we have with campaigning, we just say, oh, the world is unfair, then actually it's really easy for people to avoid taking action that would change that.
Yeah, I think Kim's got an action, which is use of web services and combined with introduction courses for people who aren't familiar with computers. So that's quite a good action.
Great.
And that would be quite good.
So 1 minute to go for lots of ideas, and then what I'm going to ask you guys to do as the moderators is to post up that people now need to vote, because here's the thing, a political party where everybody thinks the same way, agrees all the time, doesn't have anything that they feel differently about, isn't a political party, it's a cult. And we're not a cult. We are going to have different ideas, different priorities, different experiences. We are going to have debates and disagreements. That's fine, that's healthy. The challenge for us isn't to find a way of making sure that everybody thinks the same, but that we can agree what our priorities are. So what I want people to do is to look through all the different ideas coming up in those 3 categories, and then like and comment on the ones that they would like to see to be the top priority. Now, being the top priority doesn't mean that the other ideas are terrible. It means that that's the one that's getting the most support and the most interest from all the people taking part this evening. And that's how we're going to prioritise. Now, normally when we do this offline, everybody in the group has to agree together, and that's always the hardest process, not everyone thinking the same, but everyone agreeing what they want to work up. Tonight what's going to happen is the moderators are going to look at the forms and look at what's getting the most comments and what's getting the most likes, and then confirm which one has come top of all that list. So I'm going to give people a little bit of time to do that and to make their case for the things that have been put into those different categories. But the only thing I'm going to be tough about is we can only have one idea. Once we get that one idea, that one priority, that's what's going to go on to the Google documents that the people who signed up for this session have been sent in advance. Now, there might be a way, I think, that we can then forward the document to anybody else who wants to take part, but in order for you to do that, you need to comment on the question and answer page on my Google Hangout so that we've got your email address to send it to. Like I said, there are 3 groups: national, local, Labour. So if anybody hasn't been sent a link because they hadn't signed up for this session, but they would like to take part in the next stage of this, which is then planning the campaign actions that come from deciding that that issue is a priority, and we're deciding what's happening on Facebook right now, please can you comment in the question and answer page at the side of this so that we can send you the link. In the meantime, Samantha has sent me a couple of questions. She sent a national. She sent the UK and its relationship to Europe is mostly seen as negative. Could we do something to spread the word about what Europe means to everyone? It's a great question, Samantha. I actually wrote an article for The Independent about this, and if I can find a way of finding it for you whilst I'm online, I will do that now. And I hope I can post it up. Yep, so I've got the link. Forgive me, I'm not quite sure how I post a link in the Google Hangout, but I'm hoping that I can. That's not it. So, I wonder if there's a way.
Stella, there's been a comment here on the local section that I think you'd like to comment on.
Okay.
From Sam, he thinks that we should have more credit union networks. Would you like to
Definitely can.
prognosticate on that?
I'm going to post up on. I'm going to post up on my Facebook page the article for you, Sam. And that's published. So you should be able, Sam, if you go to my Facebook page now, you should be able to get that. So I've answered that question. And your second question, also at a local level, could we end the postcode lottery when it comes to NHS treatments and have the same availability nationally? I think there's so much more we can do on the NHS, Sam, because right now the way the NHS works is rooted in its history, which of course was dealing with infectious diseases. We've got a really high quality problem in this country, which is so many people now are living much longer, but actually what we need our NHS to be able to do is help people stay well and help people manage their conditions. And over half, I think, of people over the age of 65 have long-term debilitating conditions in my local community, so that's a real challenge for us. So actually, when we talk about a postcode lottery, one of the things I think we've got to be really careful of is looking at the outcomes that people have and making sure that we're not focusing on what's provided, but actually what's achieved. Because if we're trying to keep people well, then actually, when I look at my local community and the rates of diabetes and heart disease and cancer, that's a very different challenge to, say, making sure that everybody could access a hospital bed when they had TB, which is obviously what one of the main challenges was in the 1950s. It's why I'm a real fan of mutualisation, because I think what's missing from our debates around the NHS is bringing in the patient and patients' experiences, and also the role of patients in supporting other patients. I've seen lots of really interesting studies about how patients working in partnership with their providers, particularly with nurses, particularly with their families, get much better outcomes. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about bringing mutualisation into the NHS, to protect it from privatisation, because actually the best way to get the NHS to work for people is to make sure that people get to make the decisions, not money. And the way that we do that is giving them real power over what gets decided. So I think there's a lot we could do about the NHS, a lot we could change about the NHS, but it's one of the ways that I think we could make a real difference, is to bring patients to the fore alongside nurses and doctors in how we make decisions in the future. And one of my frustrations with what this government is doing is not just the way in which they have been not in the NHS, but the way they've been fragmenting the ability of patients to be part of it. I spend a lot of my time now as an MP chasing around different organisations for local residents, and that's really impossible for them, and what they really want to do is make sure they get the right treatment. Anyway, I'll stop there because it's one of those things I feel really strongly about. And thank you, Sam, and I'm glad you've looked at the link on Facebook, and I hope I've answered your question. All right, and we've had somebody who wants to link up, so what I'm going to do is share with you, Mark, one of the documents, and I'm going to share with you, I'm just going to check how many people we've got ready to go on each of them. Oh, looks like we've got a fairly even number. What I love about Google is you've all got animals as your head. So I'm going to share with you, I'll ask the moderators which topic has got the most kind of disagreement on, which might need an extra person to join.
Well, on the national one, it boiled down to two issues, Stella, which was the NHS and the electoral reform. Using a slightly dodgy likes vote system, electoral reform seems to have won.
Okay. So I've just sent the link to Mark, if you can hear me, I've just sent you a link so that you are now part of the national group working on that issue. So thanks for sending me your email address, and hopefully you should have got that now. Okay, so the thing that's come top of the national one tonight is electoral reform.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to stop the voting now. So national reform, electoral reform is the national topic to work up. So John, if you can put that into the document for people.
Yeah.
Hannah, what's come top of the Labour?
Well, it's quite a close tie between having more boot camps and education programs and training programs for young people and new members. That's got about 7 likes, but combined with 2 comments, it's about 11. And the other one is mandatory reselection of MPs, which also got 7 likes. So I think I'm going to go for the education programs for new members because I'm combining the 2.
Cool. Okay, so that's our topic for the Labour group. David, what's coming up in local?
Well, the one that has the most likes has been a very close contest. It's like Eric Bristow and Bobby George, and Tracy has won when she's arguing that we need to have a clearer message on the doorstep to the electorate, because during the general election she's saying that she felt it was difficult to convey Labour's message, which I think is fair enough. So I think that's going to be going in the sheet. Okay.
We have our 3 topics. Can I get the 3 moderators to post that up on Facebook and now close the discussions, because we've now made the decision to vote, and that's always the hardest thing for a political party to do, is what are your priorities? Not necessarily to agree all the time, but what are your priorities for action? What things you can take up? So we're going to take those off the Facebook page now and close them. And also I'm going to tweet them as well when I get a moment, so people know what we're working on. So now everybody who's watching and everybody who's in on the Google documents needs to now move onto the Google Docs. Now the Google Docs are designed, and again, please bear with us because it's the first time we've done this online, so I'm hoping that it will work. But what we're trying to do is help people work through one of the second mistakes that we often make in campaigning. So the first mistake is we just have an analysis. The world is unfair, vote Labour. The second mistake we make is to jump straight into process. The world is unfair, we've had a meeting, vote Labour. Actually, what we need to be is really clear about the purpose and the motivation of everybody and anyone we want to be part of what we're trying to do. I would love the Labour movement to stop talking about giving away power from the centre and start talking about how we can create and shape power in all different ways across the world and across society by what we do, because then all of us can be part of that. So in order to help people think about that, we've designed these grids that, again, we use offline, and we're hoping we can use them online tonight. And what the grids have, they're split up into different types of power. So what I would like everybody in their little groups to do is to think about who has the power or influence to make the thing that you've all now decided you want to do happen. So we've got electoral reform, we've got training and education, haven't we, Hannah?
And more campaign boot camps for new members.
More campaign boot camps. And what did you, David, you had...
a clearer message to give to the electorate on the doorstep.
A clearer message. Okay. So with each of those topics in the group that you're in, and it will say at the top of the Google document that you've been sent which group you're in. So if you're in the local group, your topic is a clearer message for the electorate. If you're in the Labour group, your topic is getting more training and education for members. And if you're in the national group, your topic is electoral reform. And what I'd like you to think about first and foremost is who has the power to be able to make that happen, or the influence over it. Now that can be organisations, it can be individuals, it can be institutions. Who has power or influence over that issue? You'll see in the document that you're able, if you're logged in, to be able to comment on it. What the moderators are going to do is now go over to those pages and look at the comments that people are making. And what I'd like you to do is in the top column, you can see it says who. So for every power or source of influence over that issue, please put it in a new column. So you'll see it says power 1, power 2, power 3, power 4. You can have as many powers as you like, but what we want to do is separate out the different powers, being really clear about the whole range of organisations, individuals and institutions who could help us achieve the thing that we would like to be able to achieve. Next, I want people to think about what they actually want those organisations to do. See, often as an MP, people will come to me with what I call the yes Prime Minister fallacy. They'll say the equivalent of, my dog has 4 legs, all cats have 4 legs, my cat must be a dog. Something must be done, this is a something must be done. And it has no resemblance or relation to anything maybe I have power or influence over or could actually do, or even the thing that you're trying to get done. So be really, really clear about what it is that you would like each individual source of power to do will make a real difference in being able to actually get it to happen. Be really specific about what you're asking them to do. The third question that you'll see on the grids is why. Too often we approach organisations expecting them to already share our concerns or expecting individuals to agree with us rather than thinking about how we can persuade them and what they're interested in, what they're motivated by. When I ran the payday lending campaign, we reached out to mainstream banks and credit agencies and said, look, have you seen how many of your customers and clients are going to legal loan sharks? And one bank actually did a study that showed that 500,000 of their customers were going to payday lenders, people who they would have given a personal loan to. Because these people were going to payday lenders, they were getting into financial difficulty, they were ruining their credit history, and so as a result, the bank was missing out on business. By speaking to what the banks and the organisations were interested in, we managed to get them on side in a way that had we just said, well, somebody should do something about legal loan sharking, they wouldn't necessarily have engaged with us. So thinking about the how of why you would get an organisation or institution to support your campaign, you're much more likely to be successful if you've answered those first 2 questions. What exactly is it that you want them to do, and why would they do it? What are they concerned about? What are they motivated by? So you'll see on the documents, you have those questions for every single different source of power or influence. And what the moderators are going to do now is help you go through. So please do feel free to try and comment in those boxes to give your ideas, and what they're going to do is collate them so that we get different power sources, different ideas that people have. And then they'll come up in the different columns. And I'm going to be able to go between all 3 of the documents, but you'll only be able to comment on the document in the group that you've been given. So you'll see at the top which group you're in, which should hopefully give you the idea about what the topic is. And I'm hoping the moderators have now put the topics in at the top of the documents, guys.
Yeah, I've put the topic in. I've asked if people in the group are happy with the summary that I've kind of put in as well. So if anyone has any comments, they can comment under the post that I'm putting up on the side. So.
Great. So what I'm going to be really tough on as well is making sure that you get the comments in the right boxes. So I can see that some people on the Google Docs so some of them, yeah, people are working their way through. Rishi's going great guns on the national campaign. Yeah, it looks like there's loads of people coming up with different ideas on the Labour one. Yeah, so just make sure that you follow through the different boxes if you're watching and taking part in this. So make sure that you're identifying the power sources first and what they could do to help and why they would do it before you get on to what actually is your ask, what you want to see happen. I'm hoping it's very clear. I can see that, I think it might be, yeah, so Anonymous Hippo, who is commenting on the local campaign. So David's working valiantly to try and help people. Yeah, you, the points that you're putting through are jumping ahead to the how would they do it. So I'm going to push you, go back to who has the power to make the thing happen that you would like to see happen. So this group voted for a clear message to give the electorate. So you're commenting in the boxes about who are they, the power sources. Those comments preempt who has the power. And if we don't think about who has the power or the influence, then actually sometimes we can just end up with an analysis. And in fact, that's what you've got at the moment. So I'm going to push you to go back onto what it is that you want them to do and who you want them to do it first. So you've got, for example, you put here a clear explanation of the world banking crisis is who you want to identify. And actually, I'm not clear here you're talking about who you want to give that clear explanation. So you need to, Anonymous Hippo, I don't know who you are normally, but that's your tag name. That comment is preempting the process. I know you're continuing to keep writing it. I'm hoping that you're hearing what I'm saying. Have a think about who has the power to do that first, because if we don't know who we're going to ask to do that, okay, so you put leading economists. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So then what you're asking them to do, that comment, you need to put that into the second box about what they could do about it. I hope that makes sense to you. And David, if you just want to help people who are commenting on your page now to separate out different powers, because you've got someone's putting the leadership of the party, that makes a lot of sense. That's a different source of power with a different sort of influence to leading economists, which is another one that someone's put up.
Sure.
And again, so Sam Barcock, can I just encourage you, because you're talking then, again, you've done the same thing, before you get onto what it is you want to see happen, think about who has the power to do the thing that you're asking to happen. So David, if you can just let, in fact, I think I can, hopefully, I can, so if we've got the leadership of the party as one, I'm going to put in this box here, leading economists. So Anonymous Hippo, I'm going to delete your comment because it's been, I'm moving it into a different column. I hope you can see what I've done there. It's not to say it's not an important comment, it's just I'm moving it into a different column there. There we go. So then you've got leading economists. So if you want to put your ideas about what leading economists could do, please put them into Power Source 3 on the local page. I hope that makes sense. And again, we'll just clear, so there's one. There we go. So you've got, yeah. So again, you've got, I'm just looking at the local page at the moment. You've got the leadership of the party and the national executive. So I guess I'm going to challenge you a bit, whoever wrote that. Is the leadership and the national executive the same thing, or do they have different forms of power and influence that could be brought to bear? Have a think about that and whether you might want to separate them out into a separate power source. Okay, I'm going to have a look at more education programs. Oh, this is looking great. So we've got a range of ideas about different people and organisations who could help. So, for example, some people have put down individual members, CLP members, CLPs themselves, sorry, the Central Labour Party, branch Labour parties, because of course branches and the Central Party might be two different things. And you've got higher education. That's a really interesting idea. Yeah, it seems like that one's going great guns. And I'm just going to look at the electoral reform one. Oh, don't crash. I'm hoping that my computer's not going to crash. Sorry, it's having a bit of a moment. Great, yeah. Yeah, so look, if the people taking part in that group, I hope you can see what's coming up on the screen and what people are writing, because that's really interesting, and all the different ideas. It looks really colourful to me as well, which is really interesting to see how people are commenting on what each other is saying as well. That's great. Let's go back to local, see how the local's getting on. Yep, that looks really good. David, you're one.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to answer, to give some people some time to do some writing, I'm going to answer some of the questions that have come up online here. Okay, so Neil Rees-Roberts raises a really interesting question about what's your thinking on amending the Constitution to include specific representation for LGBT members alongside the existing arrangements for women and BAME members? That's a really interesting question, Neil. I guess one of the challenges is how do we make sure that we are inclusive? And if that is one of the ways that we can do that, is that something we need to be looking at? I can see, oh, you put a, sorry, there's a +2 next to that. I don't know quite what that means, sorry. If somebody wants to comment and tell me, or is that somebody else who's put the same question, or I'm really sorry, I don't know quite why there's a +2. I know one of the things that we need to look at is, for me, not just the formal structures of the party, but one of the basic questions about who's joining at all. I'm really conscious that only 38% of our party membership is women, and actually, in some parts of the country, it's 1 in 4. And it leads me to ask a number of questions about our commitment to equality and how we make sure that we are a truly diverse party that's able to not just have people who want to stand for Labour, but be part of Labour. And it's one of the things I'd really like to explore with LGBT Labour as well, to make sure that actually at a very local level we've got much more openness, in the same way that we need to have that conversation about our black and ethnic minority members. Because frankly, if we don't get people joining as members, we won't get them standing as candidates, and we certainly won't get them represented on our NEC. So yes, I think, Neil, that there are some questions about the formal representation, but I think there's also a question for me about not just a future candidates programme, but a future members programme. I've selected that. And Mark, you're very, you've got the idea about how to do the questions on here. It's very good. Yes, I've never been on Facebook, never seen a tweet or know how to read one or respond to one, and never sent a Snapchat. No, I think we can tell you haven't. Is there a very social media training that exists to help people like me? This could be a great thing for local party to do. Yeah, I think training is a great thing, and it's great to see that training's come up as an idea. Hannah is putting her thumbs up. How's the discussion going on training, Hannah?
Fantastically. We've got loads of really interesting discussions. Everybody seems to have understood the different power sources. So loads of them are sort of skills on sort of pair up people and assign mentors. So and somebody else has got the skills and they can work together. Things like devising a syllabus for all branches within the constituency. And yeah, there's some fantastic suggestions here.
Great. And how are people getting on with the motivations of different sources of power? What they're motivated by, what their interests are, what their concerns are?
I think we're getting some suggestions on that. Not too many at the moment, but I might ask that.
Cool. Well, I'm just tweeting what the 3 topics are that people have chosen. Oh, I see, Samantha. Thank you. So you liked that question. Oh, that's good. So that means that the questions show up. I wasn't sure. Well, so anyway, Mark, I hope we're answering your question about training and support. I would love to see a lot more support for the range of skills our members have, and also what they'd like help with developing, because then obviously we can help them come up with all the ideas and things that we're seeing tonight. As you can tell, I probably need training myself in how we use Google Hangout to its full effect. I think, Samantha, that's very kind of you to like the answer that I've given. I think that's not another question, but thank you. Okay, I'm just going to have a look in now in the local group. So how's that getting on, David?
Hello, everyone's very active. There's been a lot of chat in regards to how we can give a clear message to the electorate, and the power source that's been identified is the party leader. And people believe that really we need clear points on major issues that can be easily explained and articulated on the doorstep. And that is in our interest because it persuades people to vote Labour.
Great. John, how are we getting on with the national?
Yeah, quite a few different power sources being suggested. So we've got the Labour Party itself getting its own line on electoral reform, clear and well researched. The other one that the other power source is obviously national government and parliament, because it would involve changes in the law and how general elections are covered. So the government.
I'm just reading through it now as well. That's it's a really interesting point about.
There's a lot of toing and froing. There's a lot of people getting into the issues further down the line, like if you were to amend the voting age and lower it, how low would it go? An interesting one suggesting 12, but maybe 16 or 14. And there is a debate going on about whether or not Jehovah's Witnesses should be made to vote, because one of the suggestions was looking to change the law to make voting a legal requirement like they do in Australia.
Sure.
The questions are going back and forth about how you enforce that. So maybe there could be a tax incentive, or maybe there would be a mandatory none of the above, so people have the right to vote, but vote for none of the parties that are listed. I have put two of the, so I've combined Power Source 3 with Power Source 4 because they were both the national government, so we've got a bit more space on there.
One more space for another power source if somebody wanted to come up with one.
And then looking, the last suggestion is looking to get campaign groups on board, because obviously they can help support campaigns and provide their own expertise.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm going to give you guys a couple more minutes just to complete the grids, and then what we'll do is we'll go through the power sources at the very end and what people decided on the end. So do keep writing, do keep filling it in. It looks like so just looking at the local one now that I'm looking at with you, David, it looks like people are stuck a bit on what local media could do. Oh no, Anonymous Platypus is having a go.
Yeah.
Great to see. And then crucially, I'm going to push you guys really strong, especially on the local one. So I'm just going to look at who we've got. Anonymous Grizzly, Anonymous Hedgehog, Anonymous Kraken, oh very good, Anonymous Llama, Anonymous Platypus, and Anonymous Buffalo. So lots and lots of animals. Just to push you a little bit to talk about the how. So thinking about their motivation, thinking about what you precisely want them to do, and then deciding, okay, so how are you going to get them to do that? So there's a really great idea there about a key part of training for all members and supporters. Maybe a bit more there could be said about what that training would look like. Somebody's put humbleness and self-control for the national executive. I'm not going to comment on that. Someone's put involving the people who represent the subject, so leading economists. So maybe having a think about what you would want, how now you've thought about the fact you want to get leading economists involved in that campaign at a local level. How would you do that? I'm just going to have a look on. Wow, Hannah's one. They're going great guns going through that one, aren't they, Hannah?
Definitely. We've got really enthusiastic contributors here. They're really working through the ideas. Really
great.
Good.
I really want to encourage everyone to try and complete as many of the boxes as possible, because what we're going to do is when this session is over and the forms are completed, we'll post them up on Facebook so that everybody can see them and they can comment again to say which of them they thought was the strongest idea that's come up. So it's really important that we make sure we don't lose all the ideas and things that people are coming up with. I'm just going to have a look at the national one. So the national one, oh, borough councils and councillors have come in. That's interesting. John, where's that come from? Tell us a bit about them.
That has come from Anonymous Wombat. And Anonymous Wombat is still going strong on there, so if anyone else wants to chip in with councils, I did comment that that was an important one because you know, that the point that Anonymous Wombat makes is that they could be a place where you can trial it because the elections are a little smaller.
Yeah.
But importantly, local councils, borough councils are where they administer elections. So that even at national elections, the electoral registration officer and everybody who declares results and things is done through the local council, so that's a great power source to get in there.
Brilliant. I'm just going to have a quick look at Twitter too to see if we've got any comments coming through for it. I have to get the right feed up, so I'm just going to check your comments under the Campaign Bootcamp headline. Give you a couple more minutes just to complete the forms. Yeah, Rushi, we've got a definite mention for you. You're working really hard, and Alison Gardner as well. Great ideas coming through. Really interesting to read them. And just looking at what you guys are putting in. So please do make sure that you use the Twitter handle. Otherwise, I don't always get to see everything that people have written, but I am following that feed. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to give you guys maybe another 2 minutes just to fill in the forms. So if anybody wants to ask me questions in the meantime, I'm just going to keep reading through as well what you guys are writing, which is great. I see Neil and Hannah are going great guns on the Labour one. An Anonymous Grizzly.
Anonymous Grizzly is great.
Oh, Anonymous Grizzly and Anonymous Kraken are having a debate.
Talking to one another.
I'm picturing now in my head a CLP meeting with a Kraken and a Grizzly. I mean, it's...
This is what Labour does.
The Labour Party.
Get the different animals.
Brilliant. Okay, like I say, just a couple more minutes just to fill in the forms. So please make sure that you have commented, and then I'm going to ask the moderators to close the forms and just talk us through very briefly and finally what came up in the forms. And then what we're going to do is post them up on Facebook so that people can see the outcome of your campaign bootcamp this evening and see what you were discussing. If you want to use the hashtag Campaign Bootcamp to vote for what you think are the best ideas, please do. Also use the hashtag Stella for Deputy to let me know what you've thought of this evening's debate. As I say, it's the first time we've done this online, but actually I'm really liking the way in which the Google Docs work. I don't know if people have any strong feelings about that, but that seems to be working out quite well. You're typing as fast as you can, David.
I would just add at this point, the only thing we're a little short on the national campaign is the why government would look at changing the electoral system, as that would be a key part of the campaign. We could really use with some suggestions, because if you're campaigning and you can't tap into why someone would support what you're trying to do, or at least why they would not block doing what you're trying to do, that's a really important point. So if anyone from I do have a chameleon, a platypus, a wombat, and a nyan cat in. So if any of those creatures want to chip in.
I'm not even sure I know what a nyan cat is.
No.
I'm learning so much myself this evening. This is brilliant. Okay, well, look, we'll just let those. It looks to me like you've got quite a lot of comments at the bottom there. I don't know if there's a bit of a delay about the app. Someone's definitely responded to your request for people to fill in that form. Are there any more bits missing, guys, from the local or the Labour one that you want to encourage people to contribute to?
A bit more on the how they would do it for the Labour stuff.
Sure. Okay.
But apart from that, it's going really well.
Brilliant. Well, I can see Neil Roberts is still thanking, writing loads of things. That's really great.
Yeah, Neil's done amazingly.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, oh, and the Kraken is still going.
The
Kraken's now.
Kraken is going so intense.
I might have to be here. You're advertising something called Nailed. I'm not sure if it's porn, but it is still just, well, it's only just after the watershed at this point in time. So can I encourage you to keep to the subject? Brilliant. Okay, David, do you want to talk us through the final part of the local grid and just what the powers were that people chose and why they thought that they could help with having a clearer message and what they suggested could be done? Just give us a brief overview for everyone who's on the other boards to hear what's been said.
Well, the power groups were the leadership of the Labour Party, along with the national executive, leading economists, the party leader, and local media. And some of the things that people said about how they could, what they could do to allow the campaign to progress, for instance, the leadership of the party, was being consistent in narrative, especially in light of critiques from unsympathetic press. With the party leader, people were saying, like they say on Facebook, give a clear message that can be cascaded down to local parties so everyone is given the same message. And that followed on with points such as provide clear points to party members, because it's in our interest to persuade the electorate. And the local media power source was interesting, as the Kraken, I think, Wombat sort of discussion went on about setting up, establishing independent local media groups, which I imagine would be really good in helping local communities get together and get involved with one another.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, David. That sounds like a really good discussion. Can I get you now to confirm the comments in the boxes and finish the grid as a result of it? Hannah, we go to you now. Can you talk us through what's come up in the training course?
Okay, do you want the main power sources?
Yeah, just talk us through what's come up in the power sources and what people thought we could do about them, why there'd be motivation. Just, it's for other people who are listening and watching this film back to hear what discussion came up and what people came up with in the end.
Okay, cool. So our main power sources are sort of elected CLPs, branch parties, the Central Labour Party, and kind of Adult HE and the Workers' Educational Association and other sort of community learning groups. And we had some really interesting suggestions. So one thing was the idea that individual members need a way to sort of be able to contribute their expertise and train each other. So one of the ideas we had on that was a database of information about who knows what and who's willing to help with what. So maybe the idea like a free cycle website, but with skills. So people can say the skills they're looking for, and then other people can say like the skills they're willing to share. So that's a really good idea. And then our other ideas were things like creating a syllabus for all CLPs that could be used by branches and be used by lots of different groups. So in making that syllabus, you might involve sort of local adult education groups, and they could sort of work together to devise a syllabus that would work locally. And then they could be sort of, resources could be uploaded onto, say, a SkyDrive and shared among a CLP and among branch Labour parties. We also talked a little bit about what the Central Labour Party could do. So they could create sort of central information packs, which could then be maybe personalised by local branches, or create a sort of scheme of work backed up by webinars and things. So there's lots of interesting ideas. Also, more uses of things like Google Hangouts and Google Docs for actually consulting. So yeah, lots of really interesting
Brilliant.
things here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, and John, finally, the national one.
Yeah, so going through the power source, the first one would be a sort of an internal thing, so making sure that the Labour Party has its position clear and is pro reform. So it would involve doing more research, looking to engage younger people, and as I'm guessing, they are typically viewed as being more pro-reform, and maybe using different technology to engage them. So that kind of feeds into what Hannah was talking about. And then how would they do it? There's a suggestion for a full report by the party, taking in views from from across the party, and why it would be good for the Labour Party to do this. It would show that we're not we're talking about having power for doing the right thing with it, not power for power's sake. And it would create a more informed electorate because of the scale of the debate around the issue. The media one, obviously media is an important source when you're changing things nationally. And the main thing that we're looking for is a fair explanation, so fair coverage. Maybe they could host hosting style events, put on documentaries about the issues, and it was highlighted that these should be non-biased documentaries, although that might be tough to enforce. And part of political broadcast, so short adverts that kind of encapsulate some of the issues. Why would the media be interested in it? Well, it would be a big issue, so you would get more viewers, more people engaged with media outlets through that. Then come borough councillors, so maybe looking at trying to switch to local elections first, and getting them to either change their own rules or push for a change in the law nationally, and maybe consulting on that. Again, it's the views of the public that would persuade them to do that and get rid of things like safe wards. National government was the fourth one, and we were looking at changing the law around lowering the voting age, making voting legal requirement mandatory, maybe with some religious considerations. Was talked about a little bit, giving the and devolving local decisions, so getting more local decisions down to the local level. Why would people do that? So that we did then get some suggestions with people talking about public pressure, and getting the public engaged with the idea that because people have switched off politics at the moment, this is a way of getting people involved. And the other suggestion was, because power is very rarely given up easily, looking at civil disobedience, hopefully non-violent civil disobedience, but that wasn't expanded upon. Final one was campaign groups, so people who already care about the issue, they would be very influential in promoting the advantages of proportional representation, easy for me to say, in a range of different forums, so they could feed into convincing the media and the government as well, and then increasing publicity. They already have contacts with journalists, with campaigners, etc., and then this is their raison d'etre, it's what they exist for. So they would be on board, and you would presume would want to do as much as possible to make that a reality.
Brilliant. Well, that's pretty good going for our first attempt to do this online, to have come up with 3 campaigns within the course of, well, an hour, with lots and lots of different ideas about the different things we could do. What's really striking, though, to me, across all of those topics, nobody said, oh, just wait until we get a Labour government, just wait until we get a Labour council. Getting power, being able to access the things that you can do through local and national government, is a really, really important thing for us as a Labour movement. But all the things that you've all written about tonight and that you've been debating online tonight are all things that we could also start working on now. And imagine if our manifesto was written in this way, both online and offline, by the time of the next election, through people having to get other people involved and having to agree and find consensus together. It'd be a very powerful example of what's written on the back of our membership cards, which is that you achieve more together than you do alone. The final 2 things I'd like to get you to do is, 1, the moderators are now going to close those discussions and put them up on the Facebook site so that people can see them and give some feedback about what they thought was the most powerful idea they heard tonight across all 3 of those different topics, given the discussion they've had. Secondly, I'd love you all to tweet out, using the hashtags Campaign Bootcamp and Stella for Deputy, what one action you are going to take as a result of thinking about campaigning this evening, and what one action you think you could take either at a local or a national level to help Labour with the fight back. So whether it is going to meetings, whether it is helping to run a campaign using the model you've seen tonight about thinking about power and the ways that we can access it. Neil has just asked whether we're going to get the opportunity to evaluate this session. Yes, please do comment on my Facebook, Neil, because as I say, this is the first time we've done this online, and we were trying to find a way to make sure we could get that interaction it feels to me like we've had a lot of really good conversations and members talking tonight across these different forums, and that's fantastic for me because I know that you're all from different parts of the country, but it's great to see you all working together. Being able to do things like this and work in these different ways is why I'm standing to be the deputy leader of the Labour Party, because actually I think there's a lot of ideas, a lot of energy out there in our labour movement, and finding new ways that we can work together will really help us not just win elections, but change this country. And the ideas that you've come up with tonight and the ways of thinking that you've come up with tonight have just proved that. If you were going to use this model in the way in which you plan a campaign in your local community, then the issue that comes up the top and the one that you decide is the strongest power, so when you look at the grids, the things that everyone goes, yeah, that's it, that would be where you start. That's not to say the other ideas on the grids are terrible, it just means, again, being really clear and focused about how you use your energy, being really clear and focused about what you all want to work on, really helps you be effective campaigners. So if you do decide to use these grids, if you want to take this method forward, and you can get these grids off my website, please do use the end of the session to ask everyone to pick just one of the powers that they think is the strongest idea and the strongest influencer that you've come up with, and start there. I hope you've enjoyed the session that we've run this evening. I've certainly enjoyed it. I want to say thank you so much to David and Hannah and John, who've been brilliant at helping moderate. I hope you're all giving them virtual applauses. I know there's a, in fact, isn't there a thing that we can do on, I'll get my Google effects up, and I think they deserve, there we go. Yay! Applause and applause and applause. If you'd like what we've done this evening, please do also use the hashtag #SellaForDeputy to encourage the people who haven't yet voted, and the ballot closes tomorrow at midday, to vote as well, because as a party we've been here before. We had the refounding Labour process, and that ended in telling MPs that they should have more coffee mornings and do more surveys. I think this is a bit more powerful, and I'd love to be able to lead from the centre in making sure that we could all take part in this. Even if you've already voted or if you have voted for somebody else, I hope you've really enjoyed this evening and meeting krakens and nyan cats and the odd animal that I'm not even sure I knew really existed. I'm particularly struck by the idea that we've got a hedgehog and a grizzly bear and a llama having a bit of a debate. Like I say, surely that's the future of the Labour Party. I'm going to end the broadcast there. Please do keep tweeting. We'll check into the Facebook site as well, and thank you for taking part. And thanks again to the moderators. Bye.
Bye.